What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Sneaker Homegirls Podcast. I'm Roszettie Gutierrez.
And I am Maria DiMaggio Hickman. We're two Las Vegas realtors blending real estate, hustle, and sneaker culture all in one place.
If you're into real estate, entrepreneurship, and making big moves, you're in the right spot.
We're breaking down market trends, sharing behind-the-scenes stories, and giving you the game on how to build wealth through real estate.
And of course, we're talking sneakers, culture, and how we stay fresh while handling business.
So hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get into it. This is the Sneaker Homegirls Podcast. Oh my gosh, you guys, we have such an exciting podcast today. Roszettie is not here. She's actually in Washington, D.C. with her Women's Council, but I have a very special guest on, and I'm so excited to introduce you to him. So let me give you a little backstory. I met Mikael at Bishop Gorman High School. I went in there to teach a few lessons on real estate, and Mikael was in the class, and out of everybody who was staring at me like, wah, Mikael was actually asking a ton of questions. And I found out soon after that Mikael went and took his real estate classes and took his exam all while he was in his senior year of high school. So give props up to Mikael. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you so
Afterwards,
much.
he decided to join the MD Homes team and with Roszettie and I, and we're teaching him the ropes and getting you started. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you were like a blessing in disguise, because when you were, teaching us about like all the mortgages and real estate, I was kind of like, I was praying. I was like, what do I do? Like, do I do real estate? I knew I want to do something entrepreneur-like, but it was kind of like, I didn't know if I wanted to fully go into real estate. At the time, I was, doing my courses, but you know how long it takes, So it's a big process. And so I was like, halfway through, I was like, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I just got to do some more research, because nobody in my family does real estate. So it was kind of like, I didn't know what I was going to do. And then you came in and I asked you, I'm so sorry, I made your ears bleed.
No, it was awesome.
I had 100 questions to ask you. And from there it was history, because I was like, you know what, I'm going to finish the schooling. And then I remember I emailed you saying, hey, I just passed my test. Like, do you recommend any, brokerages or teams? And that's when you were starting MDH.
Yeah.
And I remember that. And I was so excited when you're like, I would love for you to check out my team. And we did the interview and whatnot. And it's been history since.
That's so cool. So you were already taking real estate classes when we first met. So what originally inspired you?
So at first, I always knew that I wanted to do something entrepreneur-like. Mm-hmm. And so coming from an entrepreneur, you want to learn networking, you want to learn about the economy, you want to learn about money, how to use it, time management, negotiations. And I was looking, and I didn't have the capital to start my own company. I had a vending machine company. Didn't do really too well because I didn't have a lot of capital to compete with, especially in Vegas, where you have two big companies that take, the Strip and all the schools. So I kind of was leaning away, and I realized that real estate hits all five of those big birds with one stone. So I was like, I think maybe real estate. And I watched this commercial real estate guy. His name is Ben Malla, and I love that dude because he reminds me a lot of my dad, because I need someone aggressive, So watching him, I was really inspired by real estate. And then slowly I started taking the courses, and then I realized that, maybe this is for me, but I didn't have anyone who was actually in the field to tell me, hey, this is what it's really like.
Right.
So,
that's great.
Yeah.
I know, like, I have an older son who's 21, and then Anthony, who's your age. Mm-hmm. And when my 21-year-old graduated, he knew college wasn't for him. Yeah. He just knew that it wasn't going to be the path he wanted to take. And then Anthony obviously is in college playing football. Yeah. So I know when Cade first came to me to talk to me about not going to college, I was okay with it because I come from an entrepreneurial background, and I know you can be very successful without a college degree. Oh yeah. But how were your parents? How was your family? What was their reaction?
So I'm still going to college. I'm going to university. I'm gonna go to Nevada State. But I really did have a conversation with them about entrepreneurship because my dad has a small business, and I knew baby, my dad was just starting his business or kind of rebuilding it. And I knew I wanted to do entrepreneurship. So I did have those, that big conversation with my parents about, hey, maybe I don't want to go to college. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe let me take a year off. But then I slowly started realizing I would be the first in my family to get a bachelor's degree. I would be the first in my family to get a master's degree. And I think that means a lot more for the family name, But I'm going to be doing both, which is it's a big, big thing to juggle both full-time college and both full-time, real estate and being a realtor and whatnot. But yeah, I think I'm ready for it. My parents were definitely shocked when I said I'm going to do both full time, and they were kind of like, either you're going to slack off on real estate or you're going to slack off on college. But I think my two motivations are the future. You know what I mean? Being successful in real estate, getting the degree, especially going to a smaller university where I can make an impact and leave a generational name, because Bishop Gorman, they had at the graduation ceremony, they had 3 generations of,
that was so
that was
cool.
so crazy. It was like their 70th year, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, 70th year. And so you had one generation stand up and they were like, all right, the next generation, and the grandparents of
that
those
was like, I had chill bumps.
Yeah,
yeah,
I had goose. Yeah, I was shocked. You know what I mean? So then, and that's another big inspiration of, like, imagine that, but at a university, hearing my name up there while doing real estate too.
That's
So,
fantastic.
yeah.
Now, what do you think are going to be, or what have you even witnessed your biggest challenges being an 18-year-old real estate agent?
Honestly, I have 2 big challenges. The first one is I don't think people really look at me as youthful. I don't think I look that young as an 18. You know what I mean? At 18, like when Zeddy introduces me to people, the last thing they think is, oh, he's just, he's 18. But when she says, oh yeah, he just graduated high school, the agents, their eyes like open up and they're like, they always say the same thing. I wish I started at your age. I think it's genuinely, it's not the pressure, but it's the, I have to do good now, because I'm starting so young that because Vegas is so small, I'm starting, my career, and my name is being, pushed throughout all like the networks, that if I mess up, I'm going to have to suffer with that for a little bit. So I know that I need to do my best, and I need to, be positive, show my Christian faith and be able to love everybody and make sure that everyone's satisfied and happy, and I want my last name to really be big and out there in Vegas. So that's just something where, I'm growing with. So right now,
I love that. That's really cool. We talk a lot in our meetings about your reputation as everything.
Yes.
And Vegas is a very small town, and
Yes.
so you do have to be very careful about your reputation and how you treat people. And
Yes.
Yeah. Where does your motivation come from? Like, who do you say that you've learned this from?
My 2 motivations are definitely, one, my parents. After COVID, everybody suffered.
Right.
And I think I don't like to say, but I like to say my parents were the prime example of small businesses suffering. My dad's going on 68, 69 right now, and it's really sad because he dumped all of his retirement money just to keep his business afloat, and sending me to Bishop Gorman on top of that, where now I had to work, to send myself to Bishop Gorman because I was already, halfway through it almost.
Wow.
And seeing my dad wake up at that age and at 6 a.m. and coming back at 8 p.m. It makes my heart hurt. You know what I mean? Because he should be, in Mexico, he should be in Cancun, Hawaii, relaxing, drinking his wine, his cigar, but it's the opposite, and so I think that's another inspiration. But then also, I'm sacrificing a lot in my life right now where I can't really, have all the luxuries of what people my age can do right now, but I want my kids to have the luxury. I want, where I looked at some kids who were like, how can you get to go to Newport and I have to work, the weekend, but I want my kids to be able to go to Newport. I want my kids to be able to experience all the European luxuries and stuff like that.
Right.
And I'll be willing to sacrifice for that. So my motivations are my future kids and my family right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Short-term sacrifice for long-term gain.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it.
Yep.
So, how on your daily, your daily workload, how do you stay focused? How do you stay motivated? What are some things that you do?
Definitely, when I'm like listening to podcasts, right? Like Pete Davidson, for example, not Pete Davidson. There was a podcast I listened to, and he's always talking about sacrifice and how, you don't need motivation, you need discipline. You know what I mean? You can have all the motivation in the world. If you don't have discipline, it goes down the drain. And I learned that a lot from wrestling. Wrestling changed my mind. I unfortunately got injured, but you know what I mean? But wrestling changed my mindset. It was beforehand I thought, oh, well, I'm pretty good at this, I can just do another thing. It's like jack of all trades, master of none. You know what I mean? I learned that that's not how, life's gonna work. You gotta pick up the pace, you gotta focus. And I think definitely the motivation and the discipline to do something is my motivation. You know what I mean? It's if I can show people that I can wake up at 6 a.m, I can wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I can work out, do this, answer phone calls, cold calling. You know what I mean? If I can do that, then go to sleep, I feel accomplished.
Right.
You know, I feel accomplished. And then watching you and Zeddy, you guys are workforces. You know what I mean? You guys are sending inspirational YouTube quotes or quotes on our text messages at 5:30. And I know you went to bed at 10. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? And on top of that, you're raising kids. What am I doing? I'm an 18-year-old who just graduated high school. You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about, my apartment right now. I don't have to worry about paying all these different dues that you guys have to, and have to raise kids on top of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're the motivation. You guys are the motivation. The team is Brian, Jamie,
Yeah.
Getting all these new people coming in too with the team, and it's so inspirational because you see, Brian, he has kids of his own, and he's doing working at the hospital late night shifts.
Yeah.
And he just closed 2 deals almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he's
it's
got 2 in contract.
Yeah, 2 in contract. So it's like, I can do that too. You know what I mean? I don't have kids right now. You know what I mean? I don't have to deal with all, budgeting to a certain extent. I can just go.
Yeah, you got a lot of freedom with your time.
Yes, I have a lot of freedom right now, and that comes with the age too. So it's like, why not right now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why not right now? So
Yeah,
that's
I love that.
Yeah.
I know, Zeddy and I are a yin and yang, and I think that's the reason why we work so well together as team leads. Zeddy is much more the socialite, the out there meet and greet, get out there and get to know everybody, where I'm more of the business, I'm the boring paperwork, making sure the budget stays.
Hey, but it's a blessing. It's a blessing. You know
and
what I mean?
think the two of us together kind of make that happen for everybody, because we are opposite in a lot of ways. But we both have a huge heart to grow this team and to make sure that all of you guys are successful, knowing that, again, short-term sacrifice, our paychecks are sacrificed short-term, but long-term it's going to work out wonderful for everybody. And we appreciate that you guys recognize that, and you appreciate that. That's so cool. So our team is awesome. I think we have a really great energy, and I really do appreciate everybody on our team. And I feel like nobody, I was a little bit nervous when you came in that people wouldn't respect you just because of your age. And that's the one thing that is super important to me, that it doesn't matter what somebody's age is. You outwork most 40-year-olds, and you have more discipline and motivation than most 45, 50-year-olds, and you have more respect than a lot of the agents that I work with out in the field. And so for anybody to ever disrespect you, or sometimes Zeddy will get it because she's younger and she's a female. Those kind of things really irk me and set me off. And so it was really important. And I love that the chemistry of the team that all welcomed you in. There was never any of that.
Never.
And it was
Jamie,
really cool.
Yeah, Jamie and Brian, oh my goodness, they welcomed me with open arms. You know what I mean? Jamie was immediately like, hey, I have an open house. It's like, come shadow me. Watching Jamie talk, you know what I mean? The 6'8" realtor. Work in the field. And then I recently just did open house with Brian. I think me and Brian's chemistry on that open house was, not only were we working, we were having a blast. You know what I mean? We were recording videos, we were doing this, and then when clients would come in, it was like the chemistry was there. We were bouncing off each other. When he didn't have a fact to say, I did, and then when I did what I didn't, he did, and it was kind of like we were bouncing off each other. And we didn't get too many people to come in that open house, but the people who did, we know we did our best. You know what I mean? We impacted them. We learned. We were able to bounce off of each other. But you know what I mean? With those people already, I felt welcome, because immediately when I was walking in, when I was studying for the test, we had a lot of brokers come in, and they were just like, you got to find a team for you. You got to do this. And, they were preaching all this, but then you didn't really feel the aspect when you walked in. Right. When I walked into our team, it was immediately, you know what I mean? And I was talking to my parents, because I had a lot of brokerages who were like, hey, I want you to come work with me. And I was like, I think I'm going to go with Maria, because I felt so welcomed, and I wasn't even there yet. You know what I mean? I wasn't even there yet. And especially our brokerage too. Yes. Oh my goodness. Galindo. Everyone's so nice.
Shout out to Galindo.
Yeah. Shout out to Galindo. You know what I mean? Josh is super cool. You know what I mean? He didn't even know my name, and you introduced me, and I felt so welcomed. You know what I mean? He was already, asking me questions, giving me some inspirational quotes, and that was our first meeting, and I felt so inspired. And seeing everyone in that brokerage, it was like they're there to work, but they're also there to make sure everyone's elevated. You know what I mean? It's an elevation, and you don't get that a lot, I heard, in real estate. You know what I mean? So it's like...
Our office definitely has a totally different energy than I've ever felt. And like going back to Josh, when I, of course, talked to him about, I always talk to him, anybody we bring on our team, I talk to him about it first. And I said, look, I know, it's going to seem weird. He's 18. He goes, I don't give a fuck if he's 18.
Yeah,
he's like, does he work? Does he have a work ethic? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I don't give a fuck how old he is,
Yeah.
And I was like, see, this is what I mean. This is the difference where most people would be like, I don't know. Are you sure? Da, da, da. And so we have a great team lead. We have a great office and we have a great team. So that's awesome. All right. So I know you're kind of like new, obviously, but building a personal brand is so important in this business. Have you thought about your brand? Have you thought about your niche of clients that you really want to focus on and reach out to? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So my background's the YMCA. You know what I mean? I started working there when I was 14, 15 as a swim instructor, became like the lead instructor, lead lifeguard there. And they've inspired me to become who I am because I was kind of a little douche back then. You know what I mean? I was kind of, I grew up in that private school era, and that's a bubble. You know what I mean? And you don't leave the bubble because that's your bubble. And when I worked at the YMCA, I left the bubble, and you experience life. And that was something where it opened my mind. You meet people from all backgrounds, everything. And I think that's what inspired me to change my lifestyle. You know what I mean? Definitely the niche that I'm going to go for is first home buyers because I want to be a part of the family that they're going to start building now. I want them to start their journey, but I don't want to be the agent that screws them over. I don't want to be the agent that, they just want to get a quick, cash grab and leave. I want to be the person that they're in their forever home or their starter home, and they'll get a better home even, coming down the years. But I want them to get out of renting. Why are you paying for someone else's mortgage? Why are you, having a mortgage payment on a rent when you can, sacrifice that vacation that you wanted to take, sacrifice, going out to that club that you want to go to, save your money and go get a home. There's so many programs that I've listened to that you guys, tell us during our meetings where it's almost a no-brainer on why you should do that, and I think that's definitely where I want to start off is education because I love teaching. If teaching paid more, I think I would be a teacher in a heartbeat, because I love the pursuit of knowledge. As much as I don't like studying, I love the pursuit of knowledge. I love the fact that I can learn, but also giving back what I've learned to someone else who can use it and actually learn from it,
Absolutely.
And, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And shout out to our home buyer courses that we have once a month. You guys got to come out to one of them. They are totally educational, no pressure sales. Nobody's bugging you about buying a house, but our heart on our team, and I think that's probably another reason why you felt so welcome there, is we're really all about educating people. And through education, you're empowered. And through empowerment, you get to go out there and do some really great things for yourself. And like you said, you're going to be a part of families building generational wealth. And what a beautiful thing that is, that you can have a part in that and stay in touch with them and help them through the years. So I love it.
Community building. You know what I mean? You're making another family, a family, a family, a family. And I think another thing too is what I really want to bring in is I want to put all whatever contacts that I get, and I want to put them all, in a Facebook group or whatever, so that they can all lean on each other. Because also, Roszettie really inspired me to do this. It's a network, you know what I mean? And I want to build my own network. Maybe you just got a first home buyer, but you don't know. Maybe this person's a nurse, but this one's a mechanic. This mechanic knows this guy. So when you put them all together, you just say, hey, does anyone know how to do this with the car? Or anyone know about plumbing? And next thing you know it, I sold a home to that person. You know what I mean? Now it's a Puche family. You know what I mean? It's a family, it's a network. And that's also another thing too, is why I'm going to that Nevada State University, is because they're smaller. It's a smaller community, but I can, grow more, and I can help everybody.
Absolutely.
So,
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your growth and your year one goals. What do you have on the books for what do you want to see year one look like?
Well, fingers crossed, praying to God, I really want to get at least a deal or two before summer, and summer for me is end of September. You know what I mean? I really want to see if I can get at least some contract, under contract, or get to that almost finish line, because I know I can do it. I know as soon as that license comes in, I'm picking up the phone and we're calling. You know what I mean? I know I can do that, so I'm hoping for that. Zedio asked me to the end of the year, and I was like, I think at the end of the year I want to get 6 or so deals done, and she's like, the end of the year is in December. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
December.
we're 6 months from that.
And I think, you know, it's another year from now. No, it's coming soon. And I think, and I pray I can do it. I think I can get those 4 to 5 deals before 2026.
I think you can too. You definitely have the discipline. You have the intelligence. I think
have the team.
You have the team, and I think through our home buying workshop, the more people that you invite to get there, and they see that you have a heart for teaching and you're in it to win it, I think you definitely can get there. So I think that's amazing. We do have a lot of support to help you out with that too.
I love saying, like, you know, when I was teaching this swim lesson and they're asking me, you know, what's the QR code about? And I was telling them about it, and it's this little couple that were like, well, we want to sign a lease, you know, for about 15 months. I'm like, why are you going to do that? You know, I mean, you can probably qualify. Have you get pre-qualified? Have you even looked into it? You know, things like that.
Yeah.
But then, you know, when we were talking about it, I go, you know, our team is starting out. But the cool part is you're not getting me as an agent. You're getting about 5 or 6 more agents who have, you know, ×2 the years on me, and ×3, ×4 the years, and they're actively out there. So you're not just working with me. You're working with a whole team, a whole family of people who want to see you be successful. And so that was like a kind of a selling topic. And they're like, well, when's the next loan, teaching course,
right?
Stuff like that. So it's really exciting to see, you know, you telling people, you know, you're not just working with one agent, you're working with a family of agents. And that's really inspiring to see them, you know, light up. They're like, maybe we don't have to rent, you know, have a 15-month lease and waste all that money on a luxury apartment where it's, you know, a 500 square foot apartment.
I know.
You know?
I feel it's crazy that I think because we're in the business and we're here all the time, I know how easy it is for a lot of people to get a pre-approved. Especially Nevada has got some great zero down loan programs so people can get in. Our team is amazing at getting closing costs paid for our clients. So I feel like for me, it's a no-brainer. I just think the average American has no clue that it is that easy. And I've said it on the podcast with Roszettie before. It is actually, for a lot of people, if you have decent credit, it's easier for you to get a mortgage than it is for you to get into a rental.
That's what I'm, you know,
it's crazy.
And coming from civilian to agent, it's been so funny because, you know, I was, you know, I'm getting to that age where I kind of want to move out, you know what I mean? Which everyone's like, no, you know, wait, stay. But I wanted to move out, but then, you know, some of the leases were outrageous. And I'm like, I was telling my mom, she always gets teary-eyed when I say this. I'm like, the way I look at it is I move out, but I'm moving out from an apartment to a home. I don't see myself moving back. And, you know, she starts bawling all the time. Like, how was dropping off Anthony? How was that?
Oh, God. I got to tell you, it was honestly the hardest thing I have ever done in parenting. My oldest moved out, but he moved 4 miles down the road from me.
Yeah.
Anthony is like 2,000 miles away from me. And it was hard because he's, you know, I don't know. He's just so fresh to me, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. But the hardest part was the night before I left, there was a shooting one block away from his apartment. And we drove past it, and they had the whole corner like cautioned off, and cops were all out there. And I was like, oh my gosh, dear Lord, please, like, you have to protect this boy. How in the world could this be happening?
Yeah.
Right now, the night before I'm leaving, like, oh Lord. And so Anthony drove me to my hotel, and I literally just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And then the next day I was sobbing. And then I met my other boys, and that kind of helped because I was around like other family. I wasn't alone. But I still, like, every morning I'm praying more now than I ever have, because I just realized, like, I just have to keep prayers over him and keep him safe. And and he's with a good group of boys, which makes me feel good. And we had a Zoom call last night with the moms and the boys, and it made me feel good. But I will tell you, when your child leaves, you know, you spend your whole life trying to connect with your child, especially a mom and a son. And then all of a sudden that bond is supposed to be broken in a way physically. It's just like, it's the weirdest feeling.
Sending them off, you know.
Into this horrible world that you know is just going to eat them alive, and you just hope that they can handle it. There's so much pressure out there for you guys to be successful and to do the right thing and to not screw up. You know, like, I screwed up in my teens and my 20s, but there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there was no recording of the dumb shit I did. None of it. There was no proof. Because if there was, I probably wouldn't even be allowed to have a real estate license. But for you guys, everything is...
And people post it. They do like the most, like, you know, arson, and then they're like, oh, look at it. And then they post it, and then they're like, well, why can't I get a job now? Well, because they have AI that takes a photo of your face and goes, where's this person be? And that's something that I'm scared of too, is I'm 18, you know, my friends are 18, or they're in that age range.
I've seen some of their
20.
Instagram posts.
Yeah.
We won't say any names, but bonging beers already, you just graduated.
Yeah,
anyway.
and it's like, you know what I mean? I see people my age and they're like literally posting it, and then they wonder like, well, why can't they do that? And then, you know, they invite me to this, but now I kind of like, I have a brand now. And I think that's the scariest part, especially in this day and age where you say one bad thing, now you're on a defensive, you know what I mean? And that's something that really scares me for the future. But I think too is it's going to help me grow as a person. You know what I mean? Be more welcoming to everything. You know what I mean? Start taking courses on things that I need to better understand. You know what I mean? It's like things like that. Where,
you just got to grow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of growth, and you'll screw up, and you'll want to kick yourself a few times because of some dumb things that you did. I mean, it's just part of growing up, and it's part of like getting your own business. It's how it goes.
Yeah.
But having a support system with your parents and us as a team is going to help you get past those a lot easier. So I know we had talked about briefly about how the world of real estate is very different from what's being shown on TV and Instagram versus the reality of it. Talk to me a little bit about what you were saying.
Yeah, I always bring it up during our team meetings. I think I said it, you know, I've only been a couple, but I say it every time. The fear mongering that's on the news, it's kind of like, you know what I mean? No matter if you're Democratic, Republican, whatever, the fear mongering on the news is so insane. I think that we live in a life where, you know, way back when you didn't have, you know, the information like ready to you. So whatever someone said to you, you know, maybe it's the truth, maybe it's not. You couldn't check. We have the internet. We have, all you had to do is a simple search on what are they saying is true or not. You don't have to believe it immediately. Like, you know, they were saying like, it's better to just hold your money and stay in a rental and stay safe. Why? You're not owning it. You're in the beck and call of the owner of that property. You know what I mean? Like we have a client, right, who the guy's selling his property and now the family has to move out. You know what I mean? And now they're struggling to find a rental. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they have to settle with whatever because guess what? They close in about 2 weeks and now they don't have a home.
Right.
If you had a home and you were knowing you can keep up with the payments and you know that, hey, maybe Starbucks and that vacation is not needed right now and you know you can keep up with that mortgage, now you own your home.
Yes.
You know, you have the safety of that. And I think, you know, looking on the news, you know, you have, you know, these multi-billionaires who say one word of, you know, they cut the clip of don't buy a home. But in reality, he's saying, if you can't afford it, don't put yourself under that stress. If you can't afford it, go, go, go.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing I think I've heard so far is if you can afford it, go, go, go.
Yes. And the thing too, people have to realize that with real estate, I think one of the fears of people is, oh, there's going to be a market crash again, or there's going to be this. But look, I remember right before the market crashed, I sold a house in Henderson for $850,000.
Yep.
The guy paid all cash for the house. This was in 2008. And literally about 3 weeks after he purchased the house, the market tanked and the house was worth about $650,000, like within a matter of weeks. He came after me trying to say that I didn't, you know, disclose a leak, but it was on the SRPD. So I was like set. He had nowhere to go. He was sweating though. I mean, $200,000 in cash is a lot of money. So now that house probably went down to maybe $500,000, I would say, you know, after he paid $850. When I moved back here, we looked into it and found out that the house was on the market. It was listed at $1.5 million. So this is the thing about real estate. It does go up and down, but it always comes back up. And real estate still, true to this day, is the best investment I feel like people can make.
Yeah.
Maybe outside of gold. Gold is another good one, but
that gold and that all that like crypto, but crypto's a little bit of
a little scary.
It's still scary, but I think definitely it's something to do research on.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But you know, I think it's funny, you know, I have a lot of friends who argue against me saying, you know, the rates are so high.
Oh my gosh.
And I laugh because, you know, when I was going through my real estate school, you know, of course they have to talk about the market crash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they go, oh yeah, well, where were you in the market crash? And I was like 1 or 2. You know what I mean? And so then they're like, oh, well, he doesn't know. Well, I can do my research. I can open up a book. I can open up the internet. And I started to realize, you know, just sit on it. It's an egg. You know what I mean? You don't want to just throw the egg. Sit on it. If you can afford it, stay strong.
Yes.
And then you look at, like Canada, $1 million home, and it's just it's like really funny on how that there's no competition. The United States is such a great country that it's like we have no competition. And you look at the rates way back then, 20%.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Our poor parents were to pay
20% and whatnot. And then, people go to me and say, all right, well, it was 20%, but people were making way more money than the home was worth and whatnot. But in reality, you're dumping money somewhere else that you don't really need to. You can make a coffee at home. You can do this at home. You can really save your money and you can afford it.
Yeah.
And I think they really it's popular to move into those high-rise apartments. Mm-hmm. It's popular to move into those luxury look apartments for what, $2,500 a month plus, $3,000 a month plus. That is a mortgage.
And you're literally throwing money out the window. You're
throwing money. And on top of that, you have to pay. It's a triple net lease on top of that. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? Why would you ever do that? Yeah. And it doesn't make sense. And then when, people tell, how we're talking about my age and whatnot, they're like, wait, so how old are you again? And I'm like, I'm 18. And I just lectured a 25-year-old, a 26-year-old. You know what I mean? So I think definitely like how we were talking about how does your age kind of go into it? That, you know what I mean? It's like, then they're kind of shocked on, so, I'm 18 talking to 25-year-olds, you know what I mean? And they kind of get shocked because they're like, so you're 18, you didn't go through any market crash, you didn't go through any major, world events, and you know more of the market than I do at 25, 26, 27. So I guess how we're talking about struggles, I think that's definitely that struggle of, I can't really tell people my age unless they know it already, but I feel like it's gonna be funny after the fact, me like, I'm 18
because you've done your research.
Yeah, I've done my research, and the fact that anybody can do this, any age can just go on the internet, pull up the data from the left, pull up the data on the right, read the article in the middle, and then they can go, okay, well, this data is saying this data is saying this, but this article is saying, the market's going to blow up in 2 seconds.
Right.
None of the data says that, right. none of the investments say that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, to wrap things up today, I just want to let you have a little chance to speak to the people of your age group.
Yeah.
And maybe just say somebody who's struggling, maybe they want to go to college, maybe they don't. What inspired you? How can you inspire them? What advice do you have to give?
My biggest thing is, obviously, I have my faith. You know what I mean? I have my religious faith, but find a time, take some money, go out, go to a beach, go to your safe spot, and reflect. Reflection was the biggest thing for me. Reflect on, what do I want to be? Who do I want to become? Yeah, a lot of people our age right now are saying, I don't know what I want to be. Find it. You know what I mean? Find it. The sooner you find it, the better it's going to be for you. Obviously I'm sacrificing a lot of my, going out time, hanging out with my friends. I'm not saying you have to do that. And I'm not saying, those influencers who are like, wake up at 4 a.m, do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, make breakfast at 2 a.m. You know what I mean? I'm not saying to do any of that. Find who you are. Be who you are. Don't be who anyone else is. Follow the influencers. Do the David Goggins run. Do the cold plunges. Do all that. But make sure it's who you are. Don't become whoever's on the social media. Really reflect. And, kind of my last thing is, have fun while you do it. If you're not doing something that you don't love, it's going to be very hard to wake up and do it all over again.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Amen to that.
Yep. So
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So much fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye, guys.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Sneaker Homegirls Podcast.
We appreciate you tapping in and rocking it with us. Real estate, hustle, and sneakers, that's what we do.
If you got value from this episode, make sure to hit that like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode.
Follow us on Instagram at The Sneaker Homegirls for behind-the-scenes content, market updates, and of course, sneaker drops.
Let us know in the comments what topics you'd like for us to cover next. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, keep hustling, stay fresh, and we'll catch you on the next episode.